This is Locked On Bets, the daily betting show that means business from the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers, they're dropping fearless picks with an inside edge to put money in your pocket. If there's action, they've got the lock. This is where smart bets start. It's Locked On Bets.
Welcome to Locked On Bets here on this Tuesday, July 22nd. Kevin Rogers with you alongside Jack Bond as he's pinch hitting today for Lee Sterling. And you can find Jack on X at Paramount MLB. He's got several baseball plays to go over. Also, we want to thank you for making Locked On Bets your first listen of the day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So with all that being said, let's get things started.
Open it, open it, open it! Lee has the key to the lock of the day.
And we begin with the lock of the day right out of the gate. The Phillies edged the Red Sox last night 3-2, a catcher's interference in the 10th inning, and Philadelphia walked off just like that. And tonight, Jack has a total play on the Red Sox and the Phillies.
Yeah, Kevin, I can't imagine anybody that's listening or watching to this show right now has seen a walk-off catcher's interference. In fact, it's been 54 years since that happened. So tough luck for the Red Sox last night. It's actually been some pretty tough luck for Christopher Sanchez, tonight's starter so far this year. Not really because his numbers are misleading or he's struggling or anything like that, but this schedule is just not allowing him to pitch at home where he's at his best. In fact, since the start of May, he's had 13 starts, and just 4 of those have come at home at Citizens Bank Ballpark. Now, he has a 2.96 ERA at Citizens Bank, but he's allowed more than 2 earned runs just once at home this season. And that was all the way back in April against the Dodgers when he had a bit of a blow-up start. So he's really had some success at home so far this year. Really outside of that one blow-up, and that can even balloon your ERA. At 2.96 is nothing to scoff at, but when you give up, I believe it was 6 earned runs in that one start, it can really balloon pretty quickly. Now, he's one of those guys I wanted to target out of this All-Star break. He really deserved to be in the All-Star game, but he was snubbed for Jacob Misiorowski. It was a bit of a dramatic narrative going in with Misiorowski only having 5 starts before the All-Star break and still getting the nod. But the Phillies still paid his All-Star bonus. Now, look, maybe it doesn't have much of an impact on the field, but it certainly has to give him a bit of a confidence boost and, let him feel pretty good going into the second half. I'm not saying you're going to be betting him every start in the second half, but to have that boost going into your first start and in the second half, I think is a good boost for him there. Now, on the other side of things, Richard Fitz is starting for the Red Sox. I believe we talked about him on the show before. He's not an all-star. He's not going to be down in the low 2s or the mid 2s like Sanchez is. And he's really not going to blow you away with any of his other numbers. But he's got a 4.28 ERA with 28 strikeouts in about 33 innings pitched so far and a 1.218 whip. But just look at what he's done on the road. He's got a bit of a misleading stat line. I don't think he's won a start yet on the road. But in 18 innings, he's got a 2.50 ERA with 17 strikeouts and just 3 walks. The strikeout numbers are up on the road. The walk numbers are down. That's always a good sign. The team just hasn't given him much run support so far on the road this year. He's excelling at one specific thing this season, though, and that's his chase rate. He's getting chases left and right on batters. He has a 34.8% chase rate. That's in the 95th percentile among qualified pitchers and is massive for a guy whose defense behind him is one of the worst in baseball. If he's getting these chases and these swings and misses, he's not relying on that Red Sox defense to make plays behind him. I mean, they've got 80 errors so far on the defensive side of things this year, does Boston. That's second most in baseball behind, shocker, Colorado at 81. But the team in third is Cleveland with just 65 errors. So they got 15 more than the third place team. Now, believe it or not, both bullpens have actually been better of late, which you don't historically say with the Red Sox and the Phillies over the last several years. So I'm going to play the full game under 8.5 runs here instead of the first 5 innings. But I do have a lot of confidence in both of these starters to give us a 3-2, maybe a 4-2 game really late. And then we're relying on these bullpens to lock it down. So give me that under 8.5 between the Boston Red Sox and the Philadelphia Phillies. That's going to be a level 1 lock.
And you look at what the Red Sox did before the All-Star break too, Jack, is that they were absolutely on fire, and then they stumbled a bit against the Cubs. They came back and won on Sunday. They lost a heartbreaker last night. And the Phillies too, they're just trying to create some kind of consistency. They've won back-to-back games once this month, and they struggled against the Angels this past weekend. So you kind of wonder, both these teams now post-All-Star break, just trying to get themselves together. And the Phillies, with the Mets right on their heels, that they got to pick up wins too to separate themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it seems like more of the same for Philadelphia so far this year. They're a powerful lineup, especially very top heavy, but they strike out a lot. The starting pitching staff is fantastic. Zach Wheeler seems to be the runner-up in the NL Cy Young every year. Now Aaron Nola is down. We'll see if he makes his way back into the rotation. The starting pitching depth isn't great, and the bullpen has been a struggle for them, but they've come on of late, and Dave Dombrowski's at a point, not only in his own career, but in the career of this core, where you would expect them to maybe make a big splash at the deadline. Maybe it is an Eugenio Suarez. Maybe it is some really good reliever help. There's obviously some teams around the National League, especially in their division, that are surprisingly going to be selling here soon, including the Braves, and maybe a Raisel Iglesias can help them out. So they need some help. It seems like more of the same, but they don't have much time to lock in a World Series with this core.
Now, let's look back, Jack, at what unfolded last night as far as our picks on the show. Another winning night, 2-1. Lee had Hayden Birdsong, probably one of the easiest under strikeout props you'll have. He didn't record an out in the first inning in their loss at Atlanta, so obviously he had no strikeouts, stayed under there. I had the Pirates first five. Finally, Paul Skeens got some run support, and Pittsburgh shut out Detroit 3-0. They led 3-0 after five, won the game 3-0. And the only loser, unfortunately, was the Twins. They had a leadoff homer off Shohei Ohtani, but then Ohtani went deep in the bottom of the first. Dodgers ended up ending their losing streak and beat the Twins last night. But still, we'll take another 2-1, Jack. All I can ask is for profits every night.
Yeah, sure will. We took a shot on the Twins, pretty hefty underdog. And even at the very end of the game, I don't know if you saw, but 2 outs in the top of the ninth, Carlos Correa hit a ball that was over the fence. It was there, and it would have been a game-tying home run with 2 outs in the top of the ninth, but James Outman had just a little bit of a leap to rob him in dead center. Otherwise, we would have had tie game there. But, that's why you take those shots. The Pirates, we were circling that play actually early in the day yesterday and gave that out to our clients as well for a 30-unit play. So relatively sweat-free winner. You hate to have anxiety when Paul Skeens leaves the game with a three-run lead, but that's just what the Pirates bullpen has done to you. And then, Hayden Birdsong, I believe the Giants staff as a whole ended up pitching around 48 pitches in that first inning alone against the Braves last night. I even posted on my X account that they were on pace to throw 432 pitches last night after the first inning. So he just couldn't get it under control, and that's about as sweat-free of a winner as you can get.
Yeah, so we'll take that one, 2-1, and we have more baseball plays coming up, also a WNBA play as they return tonight, and also another NFL season win total with the Seahawks. We're going to look ahead to all of that. It's straight ahead. You're listening to Locked On Bets. Let's tell you now about FanDuel, and FanDuel, it's still right in the middle of summertime, so you know what it is. This is time to get in on the action. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. NFL starts up in less than 10 days with the Hall of Fame game, but also you can jump in on week 1 in the NFL, week 1 in college football. Get ahead of those lines now at FanDuel. Also, you could bet on the futures, Super Bowl, Heisman, college football national championship. What about the NBA championship? It's still coming up in the summer next year, but you can still get on that, as well as the Stanley Cup final and even the World Series. And you can go to one place, FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. We continue here on Locked On Bets. Kevin Rogers and Jack Bond in for Lee Sterling today. And now it is time with the WNBA back to get back to more winners.
To find a diamond in the rough, you need to dig a little deeper for those hidden gems.
And we finished off the first half very well. We hit the Sparks against the Mystics in the final day of the regular season. Or actually, we had that one, and then we also had the Wings against the Aces. So we hit two in the final two before the end of the first half, before the All-Star game. So now let's look ahead to tonight, and we're going to go with the Dallas Wings in the first quarter against the Seattle Storm. We're getting 2.5, 3, depends on where you look. That's a 10 o'clock game out in Seattle. And a couple of notes here on why I like Dallas. Now, Dallas has not been a good team overall, but they have played well in the first quarter. They get off to good starts, which is all you can ask for. The Wings this year, 9-1 against the spread when they are a dog of 2 points or more in the first quarter. So pretty impressive that they do hang early in these games. And that last selection we had before the All-Star break against Las Vegas, they were actually up by 7 or 8 in the first quarter, ended up being tied, but still ended up covering as they were 1.5-point underdogs against Las Vegas. So now when you look at the Seattle Storm, in the first quarter as a favorite at home, they are 1-8 against the spread, which is mind-boggling. In their last 9 home games, they have led only twice at the end of the first quarter. And also in the last 3 first quarters, the Storm, 10, 10, and 14 points. So they have not started off well. In the first 2 matchups, Seattle has won both of those, but Dallas led at the end of the first quarter in each of them. We're going to ride the Wings tonight and take them as a short underdog in the first quarter against the Storm. So before I continue, Jack, any thoughts?
Well, I'm looking at the stats right now on WNBA.com, and despite the 6-17 record, Dallas is outscoring Seattle in the first quarter on average this year. Now it's 20.5 points per first quarter to 20.4, but it's a marginal difference. But for such a disparity in the records, I'm not the biggest WNBA follower on here. I'm shocked to see that. And maybe it is just those hot starts and they're falling off in the second quarter or the second half.
Yeah, and we'll see if it continues tonight. 5 games tonight, so get back into the WNBA action. So now we will transition back to Major League Baseball.
Oh, boy. Last one out, turn off the lights. This one's a blowout.
The Marlins welcome in the Padres once again. San Diego won last night 2-1. And the Marlins, who had a couple exciting wins over the Royals this past weekend before losing on Sunday, now back-to-back losses for Miami. Still in the mix of the wild card. They're still kind of hanging around there in the National League, which is good to see. And for San Diego, right there with L.A. in the National League West. And Jack, tonight, Padres, Marlins, what do you have?
Yeah, well, look, I don't know what they're putting in that Marlins Kool-Aid, but I'm drinking it. This team is fun. They're decent. And if I told you at the beginning of the year that they would be 2 games up on the Atlanta Braves come July 22nd, I think you would have checked me into a psych ward. But here we are. They're only 10.5 back on the NL East lead. Atlanta's 12.5 back. And, they're 23-20 since the start of June. That's nothing to shake your head at. They have the 6th best batting average in baseball in that span as well. Now, I don't expect them to push for the postseason this year, but I do expect to have plenty of good opportunities to bet on them the rest of the season. This is a sleepy ballpark. It's not going to be sold out most nights. They might not even have a couple, 2,000 or 3,000 people in the stands every night. And when you get a West Coast team traveling across the country to play a bit of a sleepy series against a team like this, I wouldn't be surprised if we see San Diego actually let this series slip away from them. Now, Edward Cabrera goes tonight for Miami, and he's one of those pitching prospects that have always been so highly touted in Miami's system, but haven't really worked out. A lot like the Yuri Perez's of the world, Sixto Sanchez, even Jesus Luzardo before the trade. Those types of guys who haven't really shown their full potential. But it seems like Peter Bendix, the president of baseball operations for the Marlins, has figured something out with this system. Cabrera's biggest problem historically, this is a good example of maybe the changes he's made, not only with the staff, but with some of their scouting as well. Cabrera's biggest weakness in his career has been the 13.5% walk rate. The guy can throw. He's got some of the best stuff in baseball, but he can't necessarily place it where he needs to stay competitive in at-bats. But in 2025, that 13.5% career walk rate has dropped down to 8.6%. Now, what has that done for him? He's got a 3.61 ERA and a 3.87 expected ERA. Those are both career bests as well. So again, when you're not giving free bases in the majors, you're giving yourself a chance to be competitive in these at-bats. It seems self-explanatory to us, but when you just see the direct correlation between an ERA going down along with the walk rate going down, it explains the story on its own. Now, this really, in my opinion, kind of ends up being one of the bigger pitching mismatches of the day with Stephen Kolek going for the Padres. This is a career reliever, but with Joe Musgrove and Michael King still out, and Yu Darvish sort of easing his way back into the rotation. All 12 of Kolek's career starts have all come this year, despite having around 60 appearances in his career. He's just not a starter. If you look at his numbers, he really just should not be in a World Series contending starting rotation. He's got a 4.24 ERA with a FIP up to 4.22, and he actually has worse numbers against teams below 500 than he does against teams with a winning record. 4.45 ERA against a 4.22 ERA against teams with winning records. Now, the Padres have actually lost his last 6 appearances, and he's just not really getting much run support. In that span, they've scored just 19 runs in those 6 games, and I really don't like this matchup all that much for San Diego. Yeah, Cabrera can give up some home runs, but the Padres, for what we've known them to be over the last couple of years, are not a slugging team right now. In fact, I bet many people don't know this. They ranked just 27th in baseball with 86 home runs this year. For a team with Tatis and Machado, and historically with even guys like Josh Bell, who they picked up at the deadline before, and usually some more power at the catcher position, you'd think they'd have a more powerful lineup. They just don't. Luis Arias is really not hitting as well as he's used to this year, and he's obviously not a guy who's going to bring much power to that lineup. But that's where you take advantage of Cabrera, and I just don't see the Padres being able to do it this year. San Diego, they have the bullpen advantage over just about any team in baseball. With the league leading reliever ERA so far this year. But I'm not too worried about Cabrera really giving up a lead going into the 6th or 7th inning here. In fact, I think they can get to Kolek early. So I'm not too worried about the bullpen blowing one here. I think this one's going to be a 7-2, 7-3 final. Give me the Miami Marlins, the money line, -108, -110. That's a blowout special.
And also, too, Jack, I almost feel like, this idea of a few years ago, Slam Diego, they hit a couple grand slams in a few games, and now you think, all right, all they do is hit home runs, and that's just not the case. And another guy, too, that was there was Juan Soto, who was hitting home runs, too, and obviously hit a short stay with the Padres. But, yeah, you think of Tatis, Machado, that these guys are going to hit a lot of home runs, but that just isn't the case with them.
No, and they don't have anybody above 20 homers. They've only got 3 guys that are even in double digits in homers. And one of those guys is Gavin Sheets, who nobody really expected to even be a contributor in this lineup this year. He's been a pleasant surprise, but you look down the lineup, Jackson Merrill has not played well this year. He certainly dealt with injuries. Xander Bogaerts is just a shell of his former self, in my opinion. Luis Arias is only hitting 283. Now, 283 is nothing to scoff at either, but when you've got guys like Aaron Judge and a couple others hitting in around 330 this year, you'd expect Arias to be up there. So there's something that's missing with this Padres lineup, and I know the catcher position, especially offensively, is a big concern for their front office going into the deadline. But they're talking about going for a guy like Jarren Duran from the Red Sox. They've been scouting him for a couple of weeks. I just don't know if their issues offensively are something that you can just address at a deadline with a couple of trades, and they might need to make some moves in the offseason, maybe move on from a guy like Jake Cronenworth, or maybe move on from a guy like Arias and see if they can get some more power in that lineup.
Now let's go to another National League West team and look at the Giants as they face the Braves.
To find a diamond in the rough, you need to dig a little deeper for those hidden gems.
So San Francisco, Jack, looking to get on track somehow. They fell in a big hole at Atlanta last night, get the Braves again tonight, and Rafael Devers, will see what he can do against the Braves.
Yeah, well, don't look now, but he's heating up. He hasn't really hit all that well since joining the Giants, but over the last 7 days, he's got a .313 batting average. He's got a .375 slug. And he's even got a .455 batting average on balls in play over the last week, despite the Giants' struggles. You're even seeing Willy Adames start to hit well. So it just seems like this Giants team, they're getting some key contributions from a lot of these guys individually, but they just haven't come together at the same time in the last several months. So, Devers gets a great matchup tonight against rookie Davis Daniel of the Braves. I've been a Braves fan at least the majority of my life, and I don't even know much about Davis Daniel. The starting pitching injuries have really forced the Braves to throw bullpen games and really test their relievers. And Daniel, being a rookie, has only pitched in limited appearances so far this year. But with that being said, he primarily throws that fastball changeup combo to left-handed hitters. I actually preferred that as a lefty going back to my high school days and playing, because you're not getting as much horizontal movement. You're not looking like you're swinging blindfolded on a couple of these sliders that are all of a sudden in the right-handed batter's box by the time they get to the plate. And apparently that's what Rafi likes too. I mean, he's hitting 485 in his career against changeups. And, now, as always, of course, weather matters probably more than anything else when you're looking at going over on a guy's total bases prop. You check the forecast, and right now the weather is blowing straight out to center field at around 6 to 7 miles an hour for tonight. It's in the high 80s temperature-wise and 60% humidity. Things look good there. Again, that's perfect hitting weather. Whenever you're seeing high humidity, high temperatures, and wind blowing out to the outfield, now keeping in mind ballpark dimensions, you're in a good spot for hitters right there. That's also part of the reason why you see this total up at 9.5 and probably testing 10 by first pitch. Even if Daniel is able to keep Devers off the box score for his short outing, which I do only expect to go 2 to 3 innings max, you're looking at a Braves bullpen that's been disastrous all season and has thrown 12 innings in the last 3 games, which is a pretty decent amount. So I like Devers here in this matchup. I think even if the Giants' struggles continue, he's going to be a guy to keep an eye on in the second half. Give me Rafi Devers over 1.5 total bases at -115. It's a hidden gem.
All right, and a lot of baseball plays today from Jack Bond. As we continue, we're going to look at the Seattle Seahawks coming up next and their season win total right here on Locked On Bets. We continue Locked On Bets right here. Kevin Rogers and Jack Bond with you, and for Lee Sterling today. And before we wrap things up, we got to go to our final lock of the day.
Open it, open it, open it! Lee has the key to the lock of the day.
I'm going to take the keys to the lock of the day today. The Seattle Seahawks. We're going to look at their season win total, 8.5. They won 10 games last year, and I'm going to go with the under of 8.5 this season. And why? Well, number one, Sam Darnold's the quarterback of the Seahawks. Geno Smith now reunited with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas. And for Darnold, career year last year, over 4,300 yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but also he managed to stay healthy the entire season. And he had an elite defense on his side with the Vikings. Now he does not have an elite defense going to Seattle, so that will be one step down. Also, when you look back at what Seattle did last year, they beat Denver in the opener, which was a nice win, beating Bo Nix in his debut at quarterback for the Broncos. But besides that, as far as the other victories, beating New England in overtime, Miami without Tua at home, winning in Atlanta. The Niners were down. They beat them. They beat Arizona a few times, beat the Jets, who stunk, Chicago, who stunk, and the Rams in the final game of the season when the Rams were already wrapped up for the playoffs. So really, you didn't beat any great teams. You struggled at home last year. And at least looking at the schedule for 2025 for Seattle, you get San Francisco out of the gate. You got to expect the Niners hitting the reboot in game one, and still trips out east to Pittsburgh, to Jacksonville, to Washington, to Tennessee, to Atlanta, to Carolina. A lot of trips out of the West Coast for this Seahawks team. And yes, they get New Orleans early in the season, who's not going to be very good. But also Tampa Bay is going to be tough. Houston is tough. Minnesota, obviously, is not going to be an easy one. And you got 2 with the Rams. We'll see what Arizona is. But I just think that Seattle, they finished with 7-8 wins possibly this year. And I just don't have the faith in Sam Darnold to replicate what he did last year in Minnesota. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks under 8.5, Jack, for our level 1 lock.
Yeah, that's a lot of turnover, especially on the offensive side of the ball for a team that seemed to just be holding it together a little bit last year with Geno Smith and that wide receiver core, now lack thereof of wide receiver core that Sam Darnold gets to work with. And you just going Jackson Smith and Jigba is a great receiver, but going from Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and that pass catching group in Minnesota to what Seattle has now without Noah Fant. I believe they just released him the other day as well. So a lot of turnover there. And, one thing I noticed is to finish the season, that's back-to-back road games, not just back-to-back road games, but it's back-to-back road games coming off a divisional matchup with the Rams. And also you're going all the way to the East Coast to play Carolina in week 17 and all the way back to the West Coast to play at San Francisco to finish off the regular season. That is when you're beaten, battered and bruised at the very end of the season, maybe fighting to get to that 8th or 9th win. That's a tough schedule situation right there. So I like the play. Not a big fan of Seattle this year. It's surprising how often they've had their struggles at home in the last couple of years, despite the 12th man there.
Yeah, that home field advantage has kind of died out a little bit. And Cooper Kupp now with the Seahawks, we'll see what he has left in the tank. I don't even know how much is left there with him after his great years with the Rams, but we'll see how it all unfolds. Before we get out of here, Jack, what is going on at Paramount Sports?
Yeah, well, if you listened to the show yesterday or watched the show on YouTube, Lee mentioned it. If you follow Lee Sterling at Paramount Sports, if you follow Kevin at Rogers Picks as well on X, and if you subscribe to the show on YouTube and send a screenshot that you're subscribed to Lee on X, he is going to be giving out 2 free UFC cards. Like he mentioned, we went 6-1 this past Saturday in the UFC. He's going to be giving out 2 free cards for this coming Saturday's card as well, and 2 free 10-day MLB packages. We are 8-4 out of the All-Star break on our client plays there. We're staying hot there. We're having a winning year yet again there. We'll have plenty of additional packages and deals up at ParamountSports.com with football quickly approaching. So if you want to learn more, just visit us at the website or give us a call at the office, 800-400-9741.
And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel here, Locked On Bets. We appreciate your support and also the podcast as well. If you just want to hear us, not look at us, you can also do that. Go to your favorite audio platform, and you can hear the show every single day. For Jack Bond, I am Kevin Rogers. Another successful show in the books. Lee will be back coming up tomorrow, as we will have another edition of Locked On Bets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.